The world has changed, and not because of the movement of lithospheric plates or a volcanic eruption. It's all about monsters. They began to suddenly appear all over the world, putting the planet on the brink of extinction. Huge hordes of monsters appeared thanks to one building. It is a magical tower, a place that gave monsters strength and power, called the Devil's Tower by people. And they named it that way because those who wanted to conquer the tower were promised everything one could wish for: power, money, and honor. All this could be obtained by conquering the tower and passing all the tests prepared especially for the walkers. The huge tower with many floors was ruled by gods and demons. Rulers of all countries tried to protect people from the tower, but no one managed to stop the attempts to conquer it. As the gods and demons warned, all who prevented others from approaching the tower were punished. It has been 5 years since people started trying to conquer the tower, which was the first attempt by mankind to conquer the 600th floor. A squad called the Star Nine attempted to do just that. Among the millions of people who took part in the conquest of the tower, 9 people stood out, who were nicknamed the Star Nine. With magic and divine energy, they gained immeasurable power. The star nicknamed the Death Star did not possess any mastery of weapons or superpowers, but he is the one who betrayed the 9 stars and gained the title of the strongest. His name is Joy Hyde. He was the one who brought destruction. Joy was the embodiment of death itself. He was the greatest necromancer who was tired of people. It was believed that he only needed power and he used people to become the greatest in the world. Everyone believed that he had betrayed humanity and had joined forces with demons. People decided to kill the traitor. But even though Joey Hyde betrayed the Star Nine by striking after receiving the power, things weren't so clear-cut. He couldn't defeat them alone. In the end, Joy Hyde accepted his punishment for betraying humanity. Joy betrayed humanity for the sake of power. However, this was just a common legend. Hyde never betrayed humanity. In fact, he was betrayed by 9 stars, or rather 8, but people were not told about this, and 9 years have passed since then. A fly buzzed over a pile of unwashed dishes in the sink. Joy Hyde opened his eyes and threw off the blanket, freeing himself from the nightmare of the 9 bastards who betrayed him. Then he looked carefully around the room and the couch he was on, realizing that his technique had worked after all. Everything worked out, and his secret soul transfer skill actually transported him to this world. Just before his death, this skill allowed him to transfer his soul into a suitable body. Joey Hyde felt himself and found that he seemed to have picked up a body with similar physical characteristics, and it looked like he was still in South Korea. He remembered the 9 stars with a bad word and thought that he would have been fine if he had gone to the 600th floor alone, but they offered to help and then betrayed him. Joy Hyde wanted to know why he was betrayed. Paladin Kane Pellin was confident that Joy would not be able to summon his evil spirits on this sacred ground. Carmen Pellin thought that although Joey was considered an army in the person of one man, he was no match for them. Kane said that he was always just trying to help and he has nothing personal against Joy. It doesn't mean that they treat him badly. They just decided to cut everything off at the root. Gal Humphrey was with them too. Gal, a battle star of the 9 and a friend of Joey Hyde, he decided not to participate in the clearing of the 600th floor. They just didn't tell him because they were afraid that Gal could help him. But they caught Joy. His vision became clouded because he had lost too much blood. For them, he died only once, and it was his miscalculation. But they shouldn't think that this is the end. Joy Hyde vowed to become even stronger and punish the traitors. He hasn't made them into his monsters yet, but now he will definitely take care to destroy their souls and prevent them from being reborn. Joy Hyde heard the bell. It was the phone that was under the pillow. He hadn't held anything like this in his hands for a long time. His eyes widened in surprise when he looked at the screen. It turned out that 10 years had already passed. It was hard to believe that in just one moment he lived for 10 years. It was an incredible ability. Joy Hyde wanted to know if he could even use magic in his new body. At that moment, a fly flew over his head, making disgusting sounds. Joy killed her with a clap of his hands. After that, he got up from the couch and, holding the killed fly in his palm, concentrated. He ordered her to rise from the dead. The switched-on phone responded to this order as a request for the word rise. Joy Hyde repeated the spell several times, but all in vain. There wasn't a drop of mana in his body, but did that mean that Joy would now have to conquer the tower with no abilities at all? He thought that in 10 years, his traitorous friends could have already reached the top of the tower. He looked at the information on his phone and realized that these bastards had only managed to advance 200 floors in 10 years. This was his chance. While they were wasting their time, he could rise up and take revenge. Joy threw his jacket over himself and decided that there was no point in training outside the tower and that he needed to go there right away. Although his body is that of a newbie, his knowledge of the Death Star has not gone anywhere. He uses all his knowledge and techniques to become stronger as quickly as possible. As he approached the entrance to the tower, he swore to take revenge on the Star Nine so that you would be gone. There were many people heading towards the tower who wanted to conquer it, and Joy got lost among this crowd. Many walkers went to clear the tower, hoping to become rich, although death awaited some already on the first floor. Joy Hyde knew that the tower was a place that held many different stories. Finally, he's back. Luck either awaited him or it didn't. But he believed in himself and wanted to follow his aspirations. He, as before, wanted to make sure that everyone knew about him. Joy Hyde saw that the entrance to the tower was open. He told himself not to relax. The time for revenge has finally come. Joy Hyde walked slowly into the tower. He remembered how his conquest lasted 15 years. Now he was back on the training floor, standing at the start of the training area. It was the only floor with such a stupid level of difficulty that it would take several days to reach the end of the path full of traps. And there were rumors among the conquerors that this was the stupidest floor out of the entire 10 floors. The goal of the training was to reach the destination by overcoming all obstacles. The system reported that the wounds would heal upon reaching the destination or returning to the starting point. Joy wanted to look at his characteristics and opened the corresponding window. His stats were at their lowest and it was terrible. Joy Hyde realized that these were not the same characteristics he had before, but he noticed a new skill, gluttony. Joy realized that his abilities and talent were now different from before, due to him changing his body, but he intended to get the most out of this training. Joy rushed forward down the corridor. The system informed him that he had left the starting point and the magic arrow traps were activated. To Joy's delight, he could still see the arrows flying out of the traps, meaning his secret skill hadn't disappeared. A bunch of arrows headed his way. It was very painful. It seemed to Joy that there was very little left to the finish line, but there were too many traps on his way. His body became like a hedgehog from the large number of arrows that hit him. Joy forced himself to run, ignoring the terrible pain. However, due to the loss of a large amount of blood, he was losing strength. Joy woke up to find that he was back at the starting point and that all his wounds were now healed. He thought that he couldn't just run forward mindlessly. Two features made him the strongest conqueror on Earth, and one of them was gluttony. Thanks to this feature, he could absorb everything dead and appropriate it for himself. The young man decided that the blood he had spilled had no life-giving power, and that the experience gained from the spilling would all go to him. After activating gluttony, Joy saw in the status window that he had been awarded a reward, and all characteristics were increased by 1 point, experience also increased. And to get rid of side effects, it is not at all necessary to dig into the settings. Joy Hyde assumed that it would take him a week to complete the training and become a great conqueror. But he would accept all the arrows and continue. He was intent on increasing his stats with gluttony. He decided to do this until all the points were used up. A month later, Joy managed to reach the finish line. He completed his training, although he had to wander around a lot. The system reported that several gods and demons have taken an interest in Joey Hyde. To Joy's dismay, they were the same sick bastards from the past. The gods and demons were looking for someone like themselves. They were real sadists. None of them revealed either the god's or real name. Most likely they used some tricks to make him their disciple. But he did well in training, and he does not need a commander. On the information screen, Joy saw that the evil ruler greeted him and asked how he was doing. It was Baal that Joy hated. In his past life, he chased Joy to make him his servant. I wonder if he recognizes him now? It was he who gave him the ability to move the soul, and it turns out that he benefited from its movement. Joy Hyde became the subject of interest to God and demon. Joy told everyone interested what they thought of which one of them he would choose. But if they wanted to continue watching, they should shut their mouths and just watch. He told Baal that if he were to choose someone, it would definitely not be him. He could not even dream of it. Joy Hyde asked the system to show him the reward for learning. It wasn't bad. It wasn't easy to increase mana on this floor, and his talent was mana, so he could increase it even though it didn't normally increase. Joy saw that the second feature was unlocked. Joy Hyde had already seen his past body possessed by this feature. The new feature was called Multiface. It allowed one to master any skill. While the technique did not matter, the skill adjustment was applied during training, and during the battle an additional adjustment was made depending on the skill level. It was wonderful. Joy believed that with this feature he was invincible. He dreamed of a title that he had never been able to obtain before, the title of Almighty. Suddenly, on the information screen, the young man saw that the Lord of Evil was curious about his statistics. Joy Hyde advised the evil lord to forget about his statistics and leave him alone. He walked on, and Bal could follow him. On the system screen, the evil lord asked if he could join Joy. Hyde knew that the next room must be a training area. He walked into the training room, where he was presented with a selection of weapons and the opportunity to choose the class that suited him best. Once he makes his choice, he must break through the floor to move to the first level of the tower. In his past life, after learning about mana, he did not hesitate for a second and decided to become a magician. Joy chose a bow and asked the system to generate targets. The young man decided to test the potential of his skill. Versatility. The targets were generated and Joy inserted an arrow and prepared to shoot. He pulled the bowstring with force. 3 arrows immediately flew rapidly towards the targets, which were accurately hit. Joy asked the system to generate more targets and make them able to attack too. Joy Hyde received a message that he had not yet chosen a class, and the target could be dangerous, to which the young man replied that he did not care. The targets were generated at Joy's request so that they could now attack the player. Now Joy had to avoid attacks from targets in addition to his own attacks. They rushed at him aggressively. But the mana sword in Joy's hands was a powerful weapon, and soon the targets were finished. Joy Hyde asked the system to make them stronger and more numerous. The difficulty of the training has been increased and more targets have been created. A glorious battle ensued. Joy deftly dodged a long-range attack. The young man got a taste of battle and was surprised that the system generated the most powerful targets, which were not opponents for him at all. And he decided to return to the idea of becoming a magician. Joy was much faster. He activated the magic arrow. The targets were instantly destroyed. Joy now understood that he could show multifacetedness. He felt as if he had been familiar with this skill for 100 years. He looked at the achievements window and read that for using at least one weapon from each category in the training room, while with Almighty, he was given the multi-class reward. Joey Hyde was offered to choose it as his class, but he couldn't give up his main advantage and therefore couldn't make it his main class. Joy decided to choose multi-class as a subclass. However, this was impossible because subclasses are only available after the 100th floor. Then Joy decided to use his achievement points. He asked the system if he could use achievement points to open a subclass. The system responded that by using points, players can make changes to the system. Joy Hyde has stated that he wants to use the 5,000 points to unlock subclasses, but Joy was 50 points short of such a deal and had no choice but to turn to Bal for help. He asked the evil ruler to reveal his identity and talk to him. Perhaps this would be considered an achievement. The system actually counted the conversation with the best demon as an achievement and awarded Joy 200 points. She asked the boy if he wanted to use achievement points to unlock subclasses, and Joy answered in the affirmative. In an instant, he became the owner of a subclass, multi-class. This meant that he would be transferred to the first level of the tower after the destruction of the training room. It seems that now it is time for revenge. Joy slammed his staff into the floor of the training room. He immediately found himself on the first level of the tower in the forest of Corolla. Monsters lived here. A group of such monsters just attacked 2 players who were feeling very bad and had lost faith that they would be able to reach the top of the tower, because even the first level was very difficult for them. At this time, Joy Hyde rushed at the monsters who were already ready to attack people. He was delighted with his first catch. The run was so fast that the human eye could not follow its movements. He destroyed one of the kobolds on the fly. The remaining monsters looked at this man with apprehension. Joy was wondering how much he would get if he ate them all. Joy stood between the players and the monsters, his staff casually placed on one shoulder. One of the players thought this guy was awesome because he defeated a kobold in one hit, even though he was a mage. His comrade approached Joy and suggested that they join forces to fight together. Joy Hyde told him to fuck off and said that if he touched even one monster, he would die immediately. The players turned out to be quite smart and quickly left the scene of the battle. The 2 kobolds looked at Joy hesitantly. He asked the monsters if they wanted to avenge the death of their comrade. After these words, the monsters rushed at Joy Hyde. He knocked the first one to the ground with one swing of his staff, and the second one stopped in confusion. Joy asked the kobold if he had changed his mind about attacking. Suddenly, he dropped his weapon and ran away. However, Joey Hyde had no plans to let this monster go, and he struck it with a magic arrow. The monsters were dealt with. The system, meanwhile, congratulated Joy on moving to the first floor and offered to kill the kobold to get a mana stone. But the young man replied that he had already fought them and was now busy robbing. According to the rules, he had to defeat 10 kobolds to get the achievement, Fighter. If you kill a monster 1,000 times, you can get the achievement Slayer. In the past, Joy went around everyone to get all the achievements. Looking at the dead bodies of the monsters, he decided to have some food. Joy activated the gluttony skill. A stream of mana rushed into the young man's body. At the same time, he saw the memories of the kobold whose mana stone he was absorbing. Joy Hyde felt the power of this monster enter him, and now he could understand the language of the kobolds. Joy noticed that his stats had increased to the level of a 10th floor walker. Joy Hyde gained the benefits of each class due to being a multi-class. Joy saw memories, they led to a cave. Preparations for the sacrifice were being made there, and the Kobold Lord was in charge of everything. Joy Hyde was delighted because the timing was perfect. The Monster Lord is the harbinger of the monster wave, and he could get an achievement and level up. But to face them, Joy will need a whole army. He cast a spell and commanded the monsters to rise. He revived the kobolds he had killed, turning them into spiritual soldiers. Joy Hyde could easily control them with magic. The system congratulated Joy for successfully changing his class to the Necromancer class. The young man told his soldiers that he was all-powerful and had memories of his past life. So changing class was very easy. But that's not enough, there's still a hidden class, so he urgently needs to get to the first floor. The spiritual soldiers growled, reminding us of their presence. Joy Hyde looked at them with a smile and told them to kill everyone in their path. They had already defeated 10 kobolds out of 35. Joy searched the forest for a building he knew and finally saw it. Fortunately, no one touched this place. He ordered his soldiers to wait outside the hut. The hidden class was on the first floor and Joy began to go down the stairs, throwing mana stones under his feet, because the Necromancer is a high class that allows you to absorb souls. Somewhere here was the very first spiritual master, who was in the class change. Finally, he appeared in front of Joy. Joy Hyde recognized him. It was Vulcan. Vulcan, approaching Joy, asked if he was really his descendant. The first spiritual master noticed that this guy was not at all surprised, even though he tried to scare him. And now he felt awkward, and Joy in turn asked Vulcan, why would a necromancer be surprised at the sight of a skeleton? He had already read his journal and there was nothing surprising about it for a long time. Of course, Joy did not read the journal of the spiritual master Vulcan in this life. When he changed his class to a mage and lost all his items, he found the journal and returned to the first floor. And when he became a spiritual master, he failed to make Vulcan rebel. Joy liked the volcano. The spiritual master told him that Joy was better than that ill-mannered asshole who showed up here 10 years ago. Joy Hyde, hearing this about himself, wanted to finish off Vulcan right there. But then he decided that he first needed to change classes and told Vulcan about it. To which the first spiritual master said that to do this, he first needed to get to the 10th floor. The spiritual master class is higher than even the necromancer class. First, Joy needs to change the class again in the class change tower on the 10th floor, but the young man noticed that he was already a necromancer. Joy Hyde brought up an information window and showed it to Vulcan. The spiritual master was very surprised that the guy was able to change classes on his own without going up to the 10th floor. Vulcan recognized the talent of this man. Joy repeated his request to change classes. First, spiritual master Vulcan began the class change ceremony. Joy Hyde, sitting in the lotus position, thought, spiritual master Vulcan was known many years ago before the tower appeared on Earth. He was one of the main walkers. Although he was the most powerful necromancer, he continued to look for ways to become even more powerful. Vulcan thought that skin and bones were not enough. Is there anyone even stronger? Instead of a lich or a death knight, he wanted to summon someone else. It was a soul. Vulcan dreamed of calling upon the souls of the dead and creating one who would surpass all. In the end, he managed to create a new class, Spiritual Master. But his old body had exhausted all its strength, and the Spiritual Master class was on the verge of extinction. Vulcan chose his final path to use necromancy on himself, hoping that his descendants would honor him by doing so. In order for Vulcan to find a walker to follow in his footsteps, he became half NPC. Meanwhile, the mana transmitted by the first Spirit Master completely took over Joy's body. Vulcan told him that the scoundrel he had mentioned earlier was the second, and he would now be the third Spiritual Master. He advised the young man to use the soul vessel to catch souls. Joy Hyde was glad that he now had a soul vessel and thought that his first victim would be Vulcan. Joy had already finished all the preparations and was not going to fail twice. Meanwhile, Vulcan congratulated the descendant on his new class and told him to conquer the tower and make his name famous. Joy smiled and pointed his finger at Vulcan, telling him to do it himself. Vulcan seemed furious and reminded him of the promise written in his journal. Joy Hyde calmly replied that shifting his work onto others was a bad habit, but he would fix it, and for free. He activated the soul collection skill. The first spiritual master screamed desperately. Vulcan asked Joy if he really thought he would let his soul be taken. It's offensive. He knows it well from his past descendant. and they will see him in hell. Suddenly, Vulcan saw that he was in the center of a magic circle and realized that Joy had used magic. The young man said with a grin that with the help of the magic wall, a lower-class spell, he created a personal prison for the master. Vulcan exclaimed indignantly that he would not get away with this and he would destroy this simple spell in an instant. But that was not all. Joy Hyde told Vulcan that he scattered mana stones on the way here, and he would use magic to power them. The master just said he could easily break this spell, but will Vulcan be able to do it before he catches him? Vulcan couldn't imagine who this guy was and how a first-floor walker could have such abilities. Joy said that he failed in his past life, but in this one he definitely won't miss Vulcan. Joy Hyde, to the surprise of spiritual master Vulcan, said that he was still the second spiritual master, although he could be considered the third. Finally, Vulcan recognized this guy as Joey Hyde, the second spiritual master. Joy activated the Soul Collection skill and Vulcan screamed wildly. Joy Hyde looked at the master's skeleton with a smile and asked him not to be upset, because now that Vulcan was with him, all his dreams would come true. An army of spiritual skeletons stood in front of Joey Hyde, awaiting commands. The system notified Joy that the evil overlord was watching him, and the death-watching demon was interested in his class. But the youth knew that gods and demons could not enter the class change location. He decided that he would show them everything soon. But for now, looking at his army of skeletons, Joy decided that he would no longer need it. He raised his hand and ordered them to disappear. Using magic, he commanded the skeleton army to disappear and rise again in another form. The kobolds couldn't speak either. Then Joy summoned Vulcan, who appeared in the form of a young man. Vulcan asked the young man how he dared to use him as his spiritual soldier. It was the first time Joy Hyde had seen him in this guise, and admitted that he must have been handsome in his youth. Vulcan angrily exclaimed that this would not leave him like this and he should not underestimate him, the first spiritual master. Joy advised Vulcan not to overdo it, because he is alive thanks to his mana. If he cuts off access, the master will immediately scatter to the wind. Vulcan informed Joy that he was not going to listen to him like a loyal dog. The necromancer informed the master that he had no choice, and those who refused to obey him were turned into mana balls and absorbed by him. Joy reminded Vulcan of his specialty. The first spiritual master remembered that this guy possessed gluttony. If he didn't submit to Joy, he would simply swallow him up with this crazy skill. Vulcan decided to obey and asked the young man what he was going to do. Joy Hyde pointed at the castle in the distance and said that first they needed to get rid of that bastard, the kobold lord. There were 2 armed kobolds standing at the castle gate. Suddenly they saw a lonely man approaching them. Before they had time to prepare themselves for battle, they were immediately attacked by Joy's powerful magic. Both guards turned into corpses and their souls into spirit kobold soldiers. Soon his army already numbered 30 individuals. He ordered one of the soldiers to bring him to his master. The kobold lord was informed that an uninvited guest had arrived at the castle. He ordered his assistant to quickly prepare the offerings. At this time, Joy Hyde appeared in one of the castle's rooms and captured one of the master's henchmen. After taking out the kobold lord's guards with his sword and spirit soldiers, Joy declared that the hidden class was great. He felt a special aura coming from the room where the kobold lord was. Joy Hyde noticed the information in the system window that the Lord of Evil was supporting him by waving lightsabers. But the youth stated that he did not need the support of an old man with hairy legs. He will win either way. The kobold lord sacrificed one person after another, trying to satisfy the demon that watched over death. He demanded the next victim. It was a girl who was dragged in by 2 huge kobolds. She was a goblin. The ruler looked at the girl with interest and declared that she would be better than an ordinary person. Suddenly, a sword blade flashed before the kobold lord's face and he had to leave his victim. The lord saw Joy, who threw the sword at him from afar. Joy Hyde asked the master if he was performing a sacrifice or a summoning here. The young man said that it didn't really matter at all, they were screwed anyway. The kobold lord looked angrily at Joey Hyde, who was standing on the balcony. He recognized the young man as an uninvited guest. Joy told the old man that he must be the lord of the kobolds, because he looked like he was the leader of the scum. The lord angrily said that he was Callum, the king of the kobolds, and the man should show him respect. Joy noticed that he was painfully arrogant for a first-floor monster and suggested that the king make him respect him. The girl who was destined to become the victim did not know what was happening, but the kobold lord was now distracted by this stranger. This was her chance and she rose to her feet and ran away. Callum called upon the Death Watcher demon to give him strength. He threw a magical corpse bomb after the girl. Her fate was practically sealed. She herself understood this, preparing for death. Suddenly, Joy rushed forward to intercept the bomb's trajectory and destroyed this magic with his own. The Kobold King couldn't believe his eyes. His attack was destroyed. The girl thanked the young man for saving her, and he told her to forget everything and run away from there. Then he noticed the girl's horns and asked, "Does that mean she is a goblin?" Joy was a little surprised, because goblins are powerful creatures that live on the 100th floor, and they have no reason to go lower, especially a loner who has not even reached adulthood. Joy Hyde decided that something happened on the 100th floor, and he needed to save this goblin girl and then ask her about everything. Meanwhile, Callum accused Joy of interfering with the sacrifice to the Almighty. The young man asked the girl to hide because he would not stand up for her twice. The Kobold King prepared a new attack and offered Joy to parry his blow, since a fresh corpse would be even more powerful. It was a corpse bomb again, aimed at Joy. But it was too slow, and Callum had poor mana control. The king found himself on the floor and could not understand where the walker from the first floor got such incredible powers from. Joey Hyde added a punch to the old man, saying that they had only just started the fight and he was already hesitating. Callum turned to the demon watching over death and asked it to save him. The demon actually sent help. It was a blood golem, and Joy was surprised at how the old man managed to summon such a high-level creature. The Kobold King laughed and asked Joy how he felt about that. This was his most powerful ritual. Joy asked Callum seriously if he even realized who he was talking to right now. Callum proudly said that he would now introduce Joy to his ritual. However, Joy's spiritual soldiers furiously attacked the blood golem. The bloody monster was finished in 1 second. Joy Hyde said that even for monster lords, creating golems is not easy. Joy was sure it was the work of a death-watching demon named Boone. The system confirmed his guess and, turning to Boone, Joy said that he was probably curious about what he was capable of as a spiritual master, and he summoned the blood golem when he saw that it was fighting one of his followers. Joy then told Callum that he was just a puppet, and now he was out of mana because Boone had specially summoned a golem. The Kobold King screamed that this could not be, and that the demon would take revenge on him if he died. Joy remarked that it would be nice because he had something to say to the demon. The Kobold spirit soldiers rushed at their former master, who begged them to let him go. The old man spoke one last time to the demon watching over death but was not heard. Joy turned to Boone and said that his toy was finished, that he had decided in vain to test him, and that he would regret it. He will make sure that the demon pays for what he did. Joey Hyde raised his fist, and the demon watching death laughed heartily, saying that he liked this guy. Callum was finished and Joy waved his hand in satisfaction. Joy Hyde heard a loud scream. He walked up to Callum, who was sitting on the floor, and asked if he was still alive. Then the young man grabbed him by the throat and asked where he was going. Joy turned the king's head into a ball of mana and announced that they were not finished yet. Soul Orb creation is one of the main skills of a necromancer, and this skill allows you to collect souls and create medicines. Joy Hyde was ready to feast on the mana of this powerful monster. However, the result was not at all what he expected. As a result of all this, his strength, endurance, and intelligence values only increased by 1 point, and it would be completely useless once he reached the 50th floor. At that moment, a goblin girl approached him to thank him for his help and to say her name, Helen. Joy told her not to worry, since he was just there to deal with the Kobold Lord, but Helene said she still needed to thank him. Joy Hyde, narrowing his eyes slyly, asked what she would do if he turned out to be a bad guy because he could kill her or sell her. The girl answered seriously that in that case, she would have to take action. Joy thought she was a typical goblin. They were all very persistent when it came to promises or revenge. The young man asked Helene how the one who was supposed to be on the 100th floor ended up here. The girl replied that the goblin village was attacked. Joy knew that the goblins in the tower were quite strong creatures. Even the walkers had a hard time competing with them. But it cannot be said that it is one of the 4 great creatures. The source of power is the giants. The source of magic is dragons. The masters of dark energy are demons. The wings of retribution are angels. These creatures keep the entire tower under control, and only one of them, or someone who managed to enlist their support, could disturb the goblins like this. It could have been the Star 9. It could have been the work of someone connected to the squad. Joy's face twisted into a grimace of indignation, and Helene asked him if he was okay. Joy Hyde assured the girl that he was okay and said that he intended to get out of there. She wouldn't stay here among the pools of blood, would she? Helen expressed her desire to go with him. Joy decided that this girl could be taken with him, although she was still quite young. Joy Hyde allowed her to go with him, but warned her that he would be busy and would not protect her, to which Helene replied that she could take care of herself. Joy smiled incredulously and reminded her that she had just been almost killed by a kobold. Helen admitted that she had simply let her guard down, and Joy shrugged and allowed her to follow him. The young man decided to change his clothes so as not to attract attention with bloody things. He noticed the gear on Callum's body. A minute later, in new clothes, he went with Helene to the castle gates. Vulcan suddenly appeared before them and reported that there was not a single living kobold left within the castle. Joy praised the spiritual master for his excellent work, and Helene asked who this man was. Vulcan, in turn, asked about this girl and was also surprised that she could see him. But Helene replied that some goblins have a connection with souls. Joy Hyde realized that he had a special goblin next to him. He thought about maybe using gluttony and absorbing her abilities, but then decided it was too early to do that and it would be better to train her a little. A message appeared in the system that destroying the Monster Lord could cause a wave of monsters, and Joy happily accepted the task of destroying it. Helen asked Joy if he was really going to accept this mission to destroy the wave of monsters. The young man replied that if he had not intended to do this, he would not have come all this long way. The system reported that the demon watching death was willing to give him a reward if he got to rank 1, and Joy thought that he was trying to make a summoning. He decided to make a decision after he saw the award. Vulcan, realizing that Joy was about to engage in battle with a wave of monsters, asked him if he really wanted to die. To which the youth replied that Vulcan wanted him dead, since then he would be completely free. However, he will be his servant even after death. After that, Joy's finger decisively pressed the yes button under the task description. A warning flashed on the screen that someone had taken over the wave of monsters, and the kobolds were attacking the entrance to the village. Soon all the safe zones of the first floor would be inaccessible. And in the safe zone of the first floor, near the kobold village, there was a lot of activity. The players were confused as to who had caused this wave of monsters, since they could all die here. Everyone was advised to quickly go up to the second floor because once the wave starts, no one will be able to escape from here. The portal on the horizon expanded to gigantic proportions. Soon, crowds of angry monsters appeared. People were in a panic. It was too late to run away. The wave had already begun, and there were a huge number of monsters. Joy Hyde told everyone to get lost and warned that if they touched even one monster, he would get rid of them all. The people, seeing the unfamiliar trio, asked who they were. Could they really not see these kobolds? Joy Hyde ordered his army to rebel. One of the players, seeing this, exclaimed, "How could this person get the Necromancer class on the first floor?" Joy's spiritual soldiers rushed towards the hordes of monsters. Helen told Joy that she could try to kill the monsters too. The Necromancer advised her to hurry, because his army would hardly leave her anything. The girl smiled slyly and asked Joy not to worry because she had an idea. Helen used sphere magic. The goblin had a sword in his hands. One of the kobolds attacked Helen. However, his body was cut into 2 parts by one blow of this magic sword. Joy realized that this was not a simple sword that the young goblin handled so deftly. It occurred to him that she was the target of the kobolds who had attacked her village. Suddenly, a young man called out to Joy and asked who he was to make a wave. The Necromancer in turn asked him the same question and asked him to introduce himself. The guy called himself Sam Tucker and said he was from the White Swallow Guild. He explained that there is a famous guild of the Pelin brother and sister, the Holy Land, and the White Swallow is their daughter guild. Joy asked Sam again, "Did the Pelin siblings guild really own the White Swallow?" Sam Tucker replied that his older brother was in the White Swallow, and they also wanted to reach the 10th floor. He admitted that Joy was not bad either, and he could talk to his brother about him. Joy refused, and at that moment one of Joy's spirit soldiers grabbed Sam by the back of the neck. Joy Hyde found that it came just in time for him to find out something. He put the blade of his sword to Sam Tucker's cheek and said that they would meet after the wave was over. He would need to ask a couple of questions. His comrades asked Joy why he stood in their way. They were comrades, and why was he intimidating people? The Necromancer answered the question with a question and asked, "Isn't it obvious? They are unable to hit or steal anything. There is no need for this on Earth. But in the tower, strength is simply necessary." Sam asked Joy to let him go. He complied with Tucker's request and explained to him that he had spared him only because he needed to find out something. Joy advised Sam to stay away because he felt like killing him. The friends rushed to Sam Tucker and asked what they would do now. Sam thought for a second and said that they needed to run quickly, because if Joy caught them, they would be finished. The battle between the monsters and Joy's spirit soldiers continued. 2 human figures appeared in front of the crowd of kobolds. Joy and Vulcan killed them by the dozens, but there were a lot of monsters. Vulcan told Joy that he would fight back and that he should keep watch. They stood back to back and called for new soldiers. They were skeletons who furiously attacked the kobolds. They bit into their flesh and mercilessly tore them to shreds. Joy and Vulcan immediately turned the killed monsters into skeletons, which joined the ranks of spiritual warriors. Joy decided to play a little. He armed himself with a mana sword and began to cut down monsters left and right. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw Helene also furiously hacking at the enemy. The girl felt that there were too many monsters. One of them managed to attack her from behind. The kobold even managed to slightly scratch the girl, but then fell down dead. Helen was in pain, but compared to what she had to endure when her home village burned, it was nothing. Her rage at this memory redoubled, and she began chopping off the monsters' heads with renewed vigor. Then the girl fell to her knees exhausted, her strength almost leaving her. Helen watched the actions of Joy, who continued to fight tirelessly, and it seemed amazing to her that this young man was only on the first floor, but already had such incredible strength. She realized that she needed to stick around to rise higher so she could avenge her village. At that moment, a huge kobold rushed at her with his fists. The girl put up a block, but a magical lightning bolt deprived the attacker of his head. Vulcan appeared in front of Helene and asked if she was okay. The girl told the old man that she could have dealt with this monster herself. Vulcan decided that this child was full of determination and realized that this girl had been through a lot. And Helene asked why he helped her. When she was running away from the 100th floor, no one even tried to help her. She could only be glad that no one hurt her. Was he really helping her for the sake of profit? Vulcan replied that he himself did not know. Spirits must obey the order of the spiritual master. This is their only task. This is an order from Joy Hyde. He told him to make sure she doesn't die and gets her way. Vulcan walked away, saying that Joy would start scolding him for shirking the battle. Helen thought of Joey with gratitude, because he was the only one in this tower who helped her. The girl swore to herself that she would definitely repay him for this. A special goblin mask appeared in Helene's hands. She put it on her face and Helene's eyes filled with extraordinary rage. The energy with which the girl threw herself into battle again amazed both Joy and Vulcan. The monsters had a very hard time. Helen's sword destroyed them by the hundreds, tirelessly. The girl flew across the battlefield with the speed of a launched arrow. Joy thought that those who attacked the village were definitely looking for this girl and this sword, which was now in her hand. It was better to keep it a secret if she found out that she was the cause of the destruction of the village. It would be bad. The system reported that there was 1 minute left until the end of the monster wave. Helen, Vulcan, and Joy finished off the remaining monsters, of which there were very few left. The gates from which kobolds were constantly appearing began to shrink. The last monster was pierced through by Joy Hyde with a magic arrow. The system finally congratulated Joey Hyde on successfully stopping the wave. Vulcan was forced to admit that Joy Hyde was indeed a monster. Helen, breathing heavily, whispered that it was finally all over. Joy asked her if she was okay and advised her to never use such a skill again if her strength was running low. They both opened their stats to see the changes. Joy read that the wave was over and he was entitled to a reward for the first, second, and third contribution. The wave ended. More than 2,500 enemies were killed. All of Joey Hyde's stats have been increased by 5. Achievement points will go to all stats. Joy thought that if he mastered various skills through multiclassing and gluttony, then the stats would increase endlessly. He couldn't wait for that. The system reported that during the wave, Joy showed the best performance. He was first. Helen showed the second result. The third was the first spiritual master Vulcan. Vulcan handed over the gift mana to Joey Hyde, but the spiritual soldier didn't need it anyway. Helen also asked Joy to accept the mana as a symbol of their future together. Joy looked at the girl carefully and said that he had been betrayed before. He allowed her to go with him, but he did not trust her. Then Joy approached Helene and said that the reward for second place in the wave was too big to take without a drop of regret. He didn't want to face betrayal again, so she had to prove that she could be trusted. Otherwise, they would be better off going their separate ways. Helen thought for a second and activated her magic. A moment later, a goblin mask appeared in her hands, which she offered to Joy along with the mana. Vulcan couldn't believe that the girl wanted to give her mask to a stranger. It just couldn't happen. After all, the mask contained all the goblins' power, and they give it only to their one partner. Joy asked Helen why she decided to give the mask to him. The girl replied that this was gratitude for the fact that he saved her twice, and proof that she would never betray him. Joy noted that this mask was much more expensive than his services, and it seemed to have another reason. Helene agreed with the young man, and said that the reason was revenge. At first, she did not go into details, but her village was completely burned down, and she tried to find survivors, but she never found anyone. Helen assumed that she was the last goblin, and since she is the only survivor, she must avenge the king's death, so she asks permission to stay with Joy. Joy decided that he and the girl were somewhat similar. He accepted the mask and mana from her, and warned that if she betrayed him, it would be the end for her. He also told her not to attach too much importance to the mask she had given him. Helen was so excited that she called Joy brother. The young man shrugged and allowed her to call him whatever she wanted. Joy exchanged the gift mana for a mana ring, which gave a 10% increase to mana absorption, and a mana earring, which reduced absorption to 15%. He also received a mana necklace that reduced absorption by 20%. Vulcan spoke positively about the things Joy received, and Helene said that it was just mana. Joy said that this was perfect for necromancers who used mana to create their army. With such items, he would be able to increase the quantity and quality of soldiers by 45%. He put the earring on his ear and asked Boone how long he would remain silent. Does the demon really think he has forgotten his promise? The system gave a message that the demon watching over death was offering him to go to another place. They went into one of the empty houses, the owners of which had probably fled into the forest or gone to the second floor. Something fell onto the table where Joy was sitting, with an incredible noise. It was a ring sent by a demon who watched over death. It was the promised gift, and it seemed that luck was on Joey Hyde's side today. Vulcan and Helen were very interested in this thing, and they asked Joy what it was. Joy informed them that this ring had demonic energy. Vulcan decided that Joy was joking. Demonic energy is the privilege of demons, a power that can be used as a mana resource. Usually, to get demonic energy, you need to become a slave of the devil. Then it begins to gradually pass into the body. At least with one such ring, the power increases incredibly. Demonic energy has been added to Joey Hyde's stats by 10 points. Joy responded to the demon's offer of a handshake and admitted that for such a thing he could forget about his jokes. Vulcan had to admit that it seemed that Joy was ready to conquer the tower. A message appeared on the information screen that the evil lord was angry and offered a handshake, and Joy stated that he could expect a handshake if he gave him something too. The evil lord became worried and began to look through his drawers in the closet, and Joy told him to stop everything. After this, the evil lord decided to create a mission for Joy, and this news made the young man happy. Vulcan was very impressed that they had a chance due to the demon's mission. Joy Hyde was also a little surprised. Joy approached the demon and agreed to accept his mission. The evil lord muttered that that was not his intention, and Joy replied indifferently that if he did not want it, then he should not create this mission. The system reported that the evil lord said that it was too late to change his mind, and the conditions of the quest were to become famous before Joy reached level 100. The punishment for failure would be becoming an apostle of Baal. The reward for completing it was guaranteed. He would reward him with whatever he wanted. With such a gift, Joy Hyde was knee-deep in the sea. But the young man understood that the punishment for failure would be his becoming an apostle of Baal. However, Joy could not pass up such a chance and so accepted this task. The deal ended with a handshake. Helen asked Joy what he would do next. Maybe he would go to the second floor. The necromancer replied that they should first catch that idiot Sam Tucker to get as much information as possible. Joy turned to Vulcan and told him to find him, and the master asked if he knew where Tucker was. Joy Hyde reported that he had assigned a spiritual soldier to watch him, and Sam was already quite far from here, but still on the first floor. Vulcan activated his magic and stated that he would return soon. Joy suggested that they talk to Helene while they were driving, along the way. He wanted to know more about the goblin mask. The girl said that this mask allows one to use the abilities of a goblin, supernatural powers, and spells. Personally, she can use not only supernatural powers but also foresight, allowing her to predict the future. Joy looked sadly at the mask and said that it would be great if the abilities of this item could help Helene on the battlefield. Helen looked at the young man with interest and said that he was very strange. People from all over the world traveled a long way to find someone who possessed such abilities. They turned to elders with a request to convey the gift of foresight. Many of them were worried about the future and tried to do everything possible to change their destiny. Joy asked the girl if there was any point in running away from fate. If something is bothering a person, you need to get rid of it. Helen stated that then her ability would be very suitable for Joy. After all, her skill is combat foresight. This ability is ideal on the battlefield and it will be quite useful. Joy hugged the girl gratefully. Helen was very surprised by the necromancer's actions. Joy told Helen that she was the best, the sword star, the bow star, the great thief, the divine spear. If it came to a fight, he would even have a chance to win. He thanked the girl from the bottom of his heart for the gift. The system reported that many were delighted with their relationship, and the evil lord took a photo, and the nine-tailed fox bit her lip in envy. Joy turned to Baal and ordered him to leave and not follow them. Helen said that she was glad that she could help him in some way. Joy assured the girl that he would make this mask justify itself and help her carry out her plan of revenge. Helen was happy about this and expressed hope that everything would work out for them. Meanwhile, Vulcan found Sam Tucker and grabbed him tightly by the neck. He reminded the guy that his friends abandoned him and ran away, and he now needs to wait for Joy. The first spiritual master told Takeru that it was very difficult for him to hold it in his hands without killing it. At this time, Joy and Helen appeared and saw that Vulcan had captured the fugitive. Joy reported that this could work in their favor and help them complete Bal's quest. If he can destroy the guilds that are under the influence of the Pelin siblings, then the chances of completing the mission will increase. Joy asked his colleagues if it was time to start moving towards the 10th floor. In the safe zone on the 2nd floor, rumors were being discussed that 3 walkers had easily dealt with a wave of monsters. The conversation died down after everyone saw the 3 of them approaching them. People saw that one of them was wearing a ghost mask. One of the adventurers approached Joy and asked if they were the ones who overcame the wave of monsters and if they had a guild. And he also asked to name their names. Joy has decided not to reveal his name for now. He said his name was Phantom Mask. Everyone present was surprised by the stranger's answer. What if he committed a crime before he got to the tower? Because there are many known cases where people went to the tower to hide from justice. Joy, remembering the conditions of Bal's quest, decided that he was able to attract people's attention by conquering the wave and his mask. And in the tower, many hide their identity. He turned to Vulcan and urged him to follow him, for there was still much work to be done. Despite people's calls to stop, Joy left. The 3 ended up on the 2nd floor, and the system offered to complete their current quest before moving on to the next floor. First, they had to defeat 10 kobolds and 10 kobold warriors. Joy was confident that his team could handle anything. He asked Vulcan to take on this task. The master asked the necromancer if these kobolds would also need to be brought in alive. Joy advised Vulcan to take Helen with him because he needed to experiment with demonic energy, and if he was interested, he should come back soon. Vulcan asked the hero not to use all the energy until he returned. Helen asked if it was possible to complete the task this way, and Joy advised her to go and complete it herself. He was already looking forward to the possibility of using demonic energy. He was very interested to see what would come of it, because it was demon energy belonging to one of the most powerful races. He turned to the demonic ring and felt demonic energy. Just at this time, Helen noticed a kobold in the bushes and drew the necromancer's attention to it. The monster had already made a decision and, with burning eyes, rushed to attack the people. Joy was glad about this. It was on this kobold that he decided to try out demonic energy. A magic ball filled with demonic energy flew towards the monster. However, the experienced kobold managed to dodge. Helen exclaimed in surprise that the beast had managed to avoid the blow, but Joy thought with a smile that such a strong blow simply couldn't help but cause damage. Something strange began to happen to the kobold. His body began to shake, and his eyes bulged out of their sockets. Helen couldn't understand what was going on, and Joy explained that demonic energy was a weapon with incredible power, and not everyone could withstand such an attack. The kobold just disintegrated into atoms in some incredible way, and Joy said that this happens to those who encounter this energy at least once. The necromancer came up with the idea of making a spiritual soldier out of the 2 energies, which would make an incredible warrior. When Joy combined his energy with the demonic energy, his soul seemed to be collapsing. He could not withstand the power of the demonic energy. It was necessary to urgently reduce the energy density from 10 to 1. Immediately, Joy saw the results of his experiment. A spiritual soldier created with the help of 2 energies appeared in front of him. Helen exclaimed that he had succeeded, although it had not been easy, to which the young man replied that, on the contrary, it seemed to him that it had been too easy. He thought that since few people other than demons could control such energy, no one knew how easy it was to use. Vulcan appeared and assessed the result of the experiment, and asked Joy if this was really created with demonic energy. The master acknowledged that this spiritual soldier was simply incredible and worthy of being called a demonic spiritual soldier. Joy really liked the name, and Vulcan was the city for his student. The necromancer wondered if this meant that every time he captured a soul, he would need to fill it with demonic energy. Perhaps it wouldn't be so easy to apply in a real fight. Then Joy thought, why should he summon himself? Vulcan has more experience in summoning than he does. Joy turned to the master and reminded him that he was able to simultaneously summon souls and command them during battle, which was very valuable, and Vulcan was glad that Joy finally paid tribute to his teacher with these words. At this time, Joy turned his demonic energy towards the first spiritual master, who screamed loudly. Joy informed Vulcan that if he filled his soul with demonic energy, The fighters he summoned would turn into demonic spirit soldiers. His soul is stronger than the kobolds, and he uses all the energy he has. Despite Vulcan's protests, Joy put all his energy into the master's soul. Helen, watching this action, was frightened, but Joy calmed her down and assured her that the first spiritual master would not die from this. Vulcan, in great pain, exclaimed that if he survived, he would tear Joy into pieces and eat him for breakfast. The necromancer then advised him to reach his level. If he became strong enough to challenge him, then Joy would only be glad. Demonic energy has completely taken over Vulcan's soul. The first spiritual master came to his senses. Joy looked at him with admiration and declared that he was his best spiritual soldier. Vulcan stated that Joy made a mistake. He created a being many times stronger than himself, and this is his biggest mistake. Joy was glad that Vulcan was so angry. He put a goblin mask on his face and said that he still needed an equal opponent. Vulcan exclaimed to Hyde that as he wished, the master would now show him the demonic soldiers he could summon. The first spiritual master used his skills to summon his army. Joy calmly put on the mask, and Helen realized that the necromancer wanted to use her power. When Joy used the goblin mask, he felt like the demonic spirit soldiers were moving very slowly. He realized that Helene could see all this. Joy rushed into the midst of the army of demonic soldiers with great speed. Vulcan watched this rapid penetration with horror. Joy told him that he might be different now, but before, they called him the Death Star. With these words, the necromancer's fist crashed into Vulcan's jaw with great force. Joy lifted his mask with a smile and advised him to calm down and follow his orders because he was a demonic warrior too. Helen rushed towards the old man lying on the ground. He sheepishly stated that it only worked on normal people and that it was very painful for him. Helen asked Joy, "So he just used the mask's power?" The necromancer confirmed her guess and said that everything around him seemed to be in slow motion, as if he had become the most powerful fighter. Helen said it was just a side effect due to lack of experience. Joy wondered if this was just a side effect. Then what was the purpose of the mask? Helen reminded that this mask is needed for combat foresight. With it, you can not only see the enemy's slow action, but also predict his next move. Joy asked how he could learn to do this, and the girl replied that she just did it. The necromancer completely forgot that Helene was probably considered a genius, even among goblins. It would be difficult for her to teach him, even if he really asked. Helen asked Joy if he was feeling dizzy. After learning that he was okay, the girl said that if an inexperienced goblin used a special skill, he would experience a terrible headache or dizziness. This applies to her too. She cannot use foresight whenever she wants. She was worried because Joy didn't even manage to activate the skill. However, Helene expressed hope that he would learn everything soon. Joy thought sadly that he had miscalculated. Although everything seemed to be playing into his hands, he had become too excited about the idea of becoming the strongest on the second floor. He stroked the girl's head and thanked her for everything. Vulcan sat to the side and thought about how the greatest spiritual master had managed to fall into such disgrace. He told Helen, who approached him, that he was grateful to her for taking care of him, unlike that idiot. At this time, Joy brought a large number of kobolds to the clearing. He had one more to go, and he had to hurry before Joy turned his soul into a ball and absorbed it. And the system reported that the mission to fight the kobolds and kobold warriors was complete. Soon the third floor of the tower was cleared. Then it was the turn of the fourth floor. On the fifth floor, there was a lot of talk about a guy who called himself the Phantom Mask. They said that 3 days had already passed since he entered the forest of the fifth floor, although before that only kobolds were within his power. One of the walkers stated that after the fifth floor, goblins with poisonous needles begin to spawn. At this time, Joy Hyde appeared in the forest clearing. A goblin watched him from a tree branch, holding an air tube that shot poisonous needles. The goblin took aim and fired. However, the poisonous projectile was easily repelled by Helene with her sword. She asked the goblin how dare he attack her little brother. At that very moment, Joy Hyde destroyed the goblin. He killed him with one blow of his fist. The necromancer told Helen that she had stopped the monster just in time, and the girl said that it wanted to attack him. Vulcan, looking at the girl, thought that something was wrong. He noticed the uncharacteristic evil smile on Helene's face. Vulcan asked the girl if she was okay. Helen seemed to come to her senses and couldn't understand why she was holding a sword and smiling. At this time, John Hyde announced that he had finally completed his preparations. The necromancer solemnly announced that there would be a wave of monsters today. On the fourth floor of the tower, the night before entering the fifth floor, a fire was burning hot. Joy told his comrades that after the fifth floor, goblins start appearing instead of kobolds, and he will be able to get the Goblin Slayer achievement. Helen asked him if he was really going to go after the Monster Lord again. And Vulcan added that you can't attack them just because you want to. No one knows when and on what floor the Lord will appear. Joy replied that he had no intention of hunting the Goblin Lord. And was it necessary? After all, he knows how to create a wave manually. Vulcan and Helen's eyes widened in amazement. Then the first spiritual master said that if this were possible, everyone in the tower would have known about it by now. But Joy said that he found out about it completely by accident. Between the third and fourth floors, when he was climbing the tower, a crack appeared, and then he learned about this method. Each floor has a central area where monsters spawn. If you find it and redirect your mana there, monsters will start appearing just like during the wave. Vulcan remarked that he must have won a lot from this, that no one knew about it, but Joy said that he would be trying it for the first time. The monsters above the 300th floor were much stronger than the goblins. Such a wave of monsters would not be able to be stopped even by 4 great beings. Vulcan grumbled that Joy didn't know when it could be used, and once he found out it couldn't be used, but the Necromancer objected and said that now everything is a little different. To become stronger, he intends to create as many waves as possible. The two adventurers felt the tower shaking and decided that an earthquake had begun. But then they saw a gate that foreshadowed a wave of monsters to come, something that had never happened on the first floor. They saw goblins moving quickly. The monsters were armed with blowguns that fired poisonous arrows. The boys ran away, but one of them was struck by a poisonous arrow and could not move. It was the goblin's paralytic poison. The enemy was already very close, and it seemed that the end had come for the walkers. The guy thought with annoyance that he would die without even conquering the 10th floor. Suddenly, some powerful energy rushed towards the monster. A man in a mask appeared in front of the young man and advised him to take his poisoned comrade to a safe place. It was the man-ghost mask that was rumored. The guy realized that they were saved, and Joy thought that he would save them so that they would live and spread as many rumors about him as possible. Joy summoned his demonic soldiers and ordered them to fight the wave of monsters. An army of spiritual warriors attacked the goblins. Vulcan angrily told Joy that he was the one who created the soldiers and that he was stealing the show, to which Joy told him to shut up and call more soldiers. Suddenly they saw something incredible. Their demonic soldier caught fire. Among the monsters was a spiritual goblin. He could attack the demonic soldiers, and it was necessary to get rid of him as quickly as possible. At this time, Helene watched the wave of monsters from the height of the building she climbed. Concentrating, she jumped into the thick of the goblins. Landing softly, she immediately began swinging her sword, which was emitting a pink glow. The spirit goblin was defeated, and Joy used the gluttony skill to absorb the monster's mana. He thought that fire had a strange effect on the soul, and using this technique on goblins was useless, but he would use it wisely. Spiritual fire rained down on the monsters' heads. Joy thanked Helen for her excellent work and told her to keep up the good work. Here the necromancer noticed that the girl's sword was emitting light. He had known before that it was not a simple object, but he could not have imagined that it was so much so. Joy suddenly saw Helen in a completely different guise, the guise of an experienced warrior. She was even more struck by the special look she cast at the young man. She was a brilliant girl,